What happens when an alpha king invites his rejected mate to mock her childlessness and she walks in with his true heir? A 6-year-old boy with royal bloodline markers the king's official son doesn't have. A conspiracy that goes all the way to the throne. And a brother who's been killing royal children to steal the crown. This isn't just about revenge. This is about a father who has to earn back the son he threw away. A mate who has to decide if redemption is even possible. And a child who might be the most powerful alpha the kingdom has ever seen. They told her she was barren. They exiled her to die. They were wrong about everything. And tonight, the entire kingdom is about to find out just how wrong they were. This is the story of the Alpha King, who lost everything in one ceremony, and the 7 nights it took to get it back. I'm Marcus Shadowpine of the Northern Ridge Pack. Old bones, older memories, and a life carved by more winters than I care to count. I watched these events from the frozen outskirts of Alaska, far from the gold-soaked lies of southern courts where we know what exile tastes like. Bitter, cold, and unforgettable. Now, listen well, because pain remembers. And this night still claws at my throat. I still remember how my eyes burned, how my voice trembled, how my old hands shook as the memories of another exile, another betrayal hit me like a spear. Because when you've lived long enough, every tragedy feels like a reflection of your own. I watched from the back of the grand hall, hidden in the shadows like the relic I am, wrinkled, scarred, half forgotten. But even my ancient eyes widened at the spectacle before me. Alpha King Matthias stood tall at the center, broad-shouldered, arrogant, drunk on power. His golden cloak swept the floor like he owned destiny itself. In his arms, he held a rosy, chubby infant wrapped in royal blue. The child the kingdom believed was his newborn heir, Prince Devon. The Queen, Celeste, stood beside him, shimmering like a sculpted lie. A perfect smile, perfect poise, perfect deception. The hall roared with applause, drums pounded, torches blazed. The ground trembled beneath the weight of pride and delusion. Matthias raised the baby for all to see, and then he said it. That sentence, that poison, that cruelty painted as confidence. Tonight, we celebrate strength. Fertility. The future of our bloodline. One blessed by the moon. Not the barren failures who couldn't carry destiny if it was placed in their hands. The crowd laughed. The Queen smirked. The king basked in it. I felt something crack inside my old chest, because I remembered another barren failure. Another woman shamed for a lie designed to destroy her. And at that very moment, fate answered. No warning, no whisper, no mercy. A thunderous blast ripped through the hall, tearing the ceremony apart. Gasps avalanched, guards froze mid-breath. And she walked in, Isla, the woman he rejected. The mate he abandoned, the one the kingdom believed, was long dead. But she wasn't just alive. She was fire. Her eyes burned with fury. Her footsteps cracked against the marble like war drums. Her cloak was tattered from years of survival. But she wore it like a crown, forged in hell. And by her side stood a child, a boy no more than 6. But when the torches flickered against him, the hall fell silent, dead, choking, terrified, silent. Silver-white hair like moonlit steel. Violet eyes glowing with raw, ancestral power. The unmistakable markers of Matthias's ancient bloodline markers no child had displayed for over 200 years. Not even the infant in the king's hands. My throat tightened. Tears hit my eyes. Because the truth stood there, like a blade, pressed to the king's neck, and Isla's voice, steady, cold, lethal, cut through the air. You invited me to see your heir? Let me introduce you to your actual heir. I swear the torches dimmed. Even the walls seemed to pull back. The king's face broke. The queen's smile shattered. The crowd turned into a sea of panic. The boy Caspian lifted his chin. A tiny alpha. A storm disguised as a child. And everything Matthias built collapsed in seconds. Pain surged inside me as Isla began recounting everything the court had tried to bury. 7 years ago, when she first carried Matthias's child, the royal doctor had declared her incompatible, claiming her womb would never hold an alpha heir. Matthias believed the lie instantly. He rejected her publicly, stripped her of title, humiliated her before thousands, and exiled her 3 months pregnant into dangerous, unclaimed territories where wolves die slow, brutal deaths. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood, because I remember that ancient cruelty. I've seen it too many times to ever forget. But Isla survived. She gave birth alone during a storm. She raised Caspian in hiding. By age 2, the boy showed power that terrified even seasoned alphas, while Matthias paraded a stolen child as his heir. And now the truth stood roaring in the center of the hall. The queen's baby had ordinary features, brown hair, soft blue eyes, nothing that connected to Matthias's bloodline. The kingdom saw it. Matthias saw it. Caspian was the true heir. Then Isla delivered the blow that shattered the throne. Your doctor lied. Your queen lied. And that baby isn't yours. I felt the room collapse into chaos, guards shouting, nobles gasping, shame flooding Matthias's face like cold water. The doctor, shaking, sweating, finally confessed. He had been paid by Queen Celeste's family to fake Isla's diagnosis, paid to declare Isla barren, paid to push her out so Celeste could claim the throne, paid to label another man's child as the king's heir. Her advisor, a smirking, weak-willed noble, had fathered Celeste's baby. The entire royal bloodline was a lie. And in one night, the kingdom witnessed their mighty king crumble. Matthias lost his mind, his heir, and his legitimacy in one breathless, brutal ceremony. But Isla didn't come for the throne. No, she came for something darker. Something Marcus Shadowpine, the old fool who has seen too much, can still feel itching beneath my skin. Because this wasn't revenge. This was survival. And soon, the king will discover the truth. Someone is hunting royal bloodlines. And Caspian, the child who carries power older than the moon, is next. Pain. Raw pain. Violent, choking, burning pain ripped out of my chest as I cried so hard I tasted blood. Not quiet tears. Not weak tears. I mean animal-sounding cries that clawed their way out of my throat like something dying. My lungs convulsed. My hands shook. My heart thundered like it wanted to explode out of my ribs. Because now I knew. Now I finally knew why I came back. Not for revenge. Not for pride. Not to make him suffer. I came back to keep my son alive. The truth wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft. It wasn't something you could whisper in candlelight. It slammed into me like a blade. They were hunting us. The Crimson Veil. I don't say their name lightly. I don't breathe it without my pulse going wild. They aren't myths. They aren't bedtime horror stories. They are real. Organized. Cold. Precise. Monsters who wear human faces. They hunt lost royal bloodlines. Children like mine. Children like Caspian. 6 months. That's how long they'd been tracking him. 6 months of shadows behind trees. Footsteps that stopped when I turned around. Birds flying too suddenly. Strange men who watched too long. Strange women who smiled too politely. 3 royal children were already dead. 3. Burned carriages. Poisoned sweets. Accidents. Lies. Slaughter dressed as fate. And I understood the sickest truth of all. The only way to protect Caspian was to drag him straight into the wolf's den and force the kingdom to admit he existed. Publicly, loudly, permanently. If he wasn't acknowledged, he was meat in the dark. That's why I returned. Not because I missed the palace. Not because I missed Matthias. I came back because the hunters were getting closer. And then came his choice. Matthias. The man who once looked at my belly like it was a mistake. The man who turned his back on us. Now he had to choose. His pride or his son's life. I watched him struggle and it almost made me laugh. Almost. The council tore the air apart with their shouting. Voices like knives. Expose him and we protect him. No acknowledging him weakens the bloodline. He's a threat. He's a risk. And then she spoke. Queen Celeste. Her voice was sweet. Calm. Surgical. Execute them both. Not hesitate. Not negotiate. Kill me. Kill my son. Erase us. I felt my bones go cold. But I didn't flinch. Let them see it. Let them see that I would burn before I bowed. Then the walls screamed. Not metaphorically. Actually screamed. Steel ripped through stone. Glass exploded like gunshots. And they came. The Crimson Veil didn't sneak in. They invaded. Black cloaks. Silver masks. Movements too smooth to be human. They weren't after the crown. They weren't after gold. They weren't after Matthias. They were after my child. Caspian. I didn't think. I moved. Instinct turned into fire. Matthias moved too. Not as a king. Not as a ruler. As a weapon. We fought back to back like we had thousands of years of war in our blood. Blades clashed. Walls cracked. Blood hit marble. And then, my son stepped forward. 6 years old. Small hands. Big, ancient eyes. And the world broke. Alpha power exploded out of him like a storm ripping open the sky. The air bent. The floor cracked under his feet. 3 assassins froze. Not afraid. Frozen. Like prey staring at a god. He didn't hesitate. He didn't cry. He didn't hide. He tore through them. 3 grown killers. Silenced. Ended. Destroyed. By a child. And in that moment, I saw Matthias's soul crack. He finally saw him, not as a mistake, not as a rumor, not as a scandal, as a force of nature, as his son. Silence swallowed the palace after. Bodies, blood, shattered stone, shattered lies. That's when he spoke. The bargain. His mouth was calm. His eyes weren't. You will stay. As an honored guest. Not wife. Not equal. A tolerated ghost. And the boy, he said slowly, will be recognized as a potential heir. Potential. Not promised. Not rightful. A bone thrown to a drowning child. I laughed. Out loud. Sharp. Ugly. Honest. No, no, I said, and my voice didn't shake. All or nothing. The court froze. He is your firstborn, I said. Your true heir, not a shadow, not a secret. You will say it, or we leave. Matthias leaned forward. And if you leave, he said quietly, you will die. No mercy in his words. Just truth. I stepped closer. So be it, I said. Then we die free. Silence. No one breathed. I took Caspian's hand. Warm. Real. Alive. We turned our backs on the throne. On the jewels. On the gold. On the fear. We walked out. And that should have been the end. It wasn't. Because behind us, something shifted. A decision being born. A crown cracking. Boots echoed. Not guards. Not soldiers. Footsteps that didn't belong to a king. Matthias followed us. Not in silk. Not in gold. Not surrounded by power. Just a man. Just a father. Because his beta had just brought him the truth. The real truth. The leader of the Crimson Veil. Not a stranger. Not a monster from the outside. Family. Someone from Matthias's own bloodline. Someone with royal blood. Someone who wanted my son dead. And now we weren't running. Now we were walking straight into war. Pain. Violent pain. Savage. Guttural pain that ripped out of my throat, in broken screams that felt like my soul was being dragged across glass and set on fire. I cried so hard, my chest burned. I clawed at the air like I could rip the truth out of the darkness. My body shook. My teeth chattered. My heart battered itself against my ribs like it wanted to escape the grief. Because the enemy wasn't outside the family. He was inside it. It was Lucian, Matthias's younger brother, Prince Lucian. The name tasted like poison in my mouth when I learned it. It made my blood feel dirty. It made my skin crawl. He wasn't a shadow. He wasn't a mystery. He wasn't a rumor. He was the hand that paid for everything. He was the one funding the Crimson Veil. The one feeding them gold. Maps, names, children. He was next in line for the throne. Unless my son was legitimized. And he couldn't allow that. He never would. He'd been doing this for years, cutting down threats. Before they could breathe. Babies who cried with royal lungs. Children who slept with crowns in their blood. Accidents. Fires. Poison. Falling balconies. Broken carriages. And Queen Celeste? A plant. A beautiful, smiling weapon with cold eyes and colder womb. Lucian put her there. He made sure Matthias had no true heir. He made sure the bloodline stayed clean. He made sure my son would never be seen. And when I understood that, my veins turned into ice. We didn't get time to breathe. We didn't get time to plan. We ran. Neutral territory. No flags, no allies, no kings. Only dirt, trees, wind, death crawling behind us. And then the air split. Lucian's forces found us. Steel flashed. Boots thundered. The forest turned into a slaughterhouse. And then Matthias came. He tracked us, found us, not as a king, as a father who was too late. They surrounded us like wolves. Masks, cloaks, blades that hummed like they wanted blood. And this time, we didn't stand back to back. This time, we stood as three. Father, mother, son. Caspian's power exploded wild, not controlled, not trained, unleashed chaos. The ground cracked. Branches snapped. The air twisted like it was screaming. But it was reckless, dangerous. He hurt them. He almost hurt himself. And Matthias moved. No speeches, no lectures. Hands on my son's wrists. Voice low but sharp. Breathe. Don't throw power. Aim it. Teaching him, in the middle of death, in the middle of blood, guiding him like he should have done years ago. Steel hit steel. Blood hit bark. Fire met shadow. We survived by inches. By instinct. By rage. And then Lucian stepped out. No cloak. No mask. Just a smile. Just betrayal walking on two legs. Clapping slowly. Proud. Amused. He didn't come to kill us quietly. He came to be seen. To be remembered. His voice was soft. Almost gentle. You finally found them, he said to Matthias. Then he looked at me. Then at my son. Admired him like a collector admiring a knife. And then he dropped the rot. The baby Celeste carries, he said. That child is mine. Silence. The forest felt like it stopped breathing. His son, not Matthias's. His bloodline. His plan, a puppet queen carrying his heir, wearing the crown, controlling the future. Then he stepped closer to his brother. You threw away your real heir, Lucian said, voice sharpening. For my trap. Matthias snapped. There is no prettier word for it. He didn't talk. He didn't hesitate. He attacked. Fists. Steel. Bone. They didn't fight like princes. They fought like men who had shared a childhood and now wanted to erase it. Every blow was old jealousy. Every strike was buried hatred. Every hit was years of lies. I protected Caspian. Caspian watched. Absorbed. Learned. And then, crimson fire. Steel too close. Blood too much. A blade slipped through. Not into Matthias. Into my son. Caspian jumped in front of him. Like instinct wrote itself into his bones. The sound he made, it didn't sound like a child. It sounded like something breaking that could never be fixed. My scream tore the air open. Matthias didn't think. He caught him, arms locked tight, hands shaking, blood soaking through royal fabric. No, he whispered. Not a king's voice. A man's voice. A father's voice. We ran, not like royals, not like legends, like hunted animals, like desperate humans clinging to life. We escaped by breath, by shadow, by miracle. In a cave carved by time and fear, Matthias laid him down. Small body, pale lips, shaking lashes. I looked at Matthias. My voice wasn't gentle. It was broken truth. Now do you see? I said. He's been yours this whole time. Matthias didn't answer immediately. He just held my son's hand, like he was afraid to let go, like he was afraid he'd earned the right too late. When Caspian's eyes fluttered open, Matthias whispered it. Not loudly. Not publicly. Not for the world. For me, he said. For you. Words that tasted like blood and regret. You're my son. My heir. My mistake. That should have been peace. It wasn't. Because while we were bleeding in the dark, Lucian was moving. And he moved fast. He took the throne. He filled the court with his men. He filled the kingdom with his lies. And the biggest one? He declared Matthias dead. Not missing. Not lost. Dead. Buried. Erased. Now we aren't just running. Now we aren't just hiding. Now we aren't just surviving. Now we're coming back for a kingdom. and blood, and a crown that was stolen by family. Pain. Brutal, screaming pain exploded out of my chest as I cried like a wounded animal. Violent sobs tearing my throat raw. My lungs burning. My hands shaking so badly they felt like they would split apart. I cried with fury. I cried with betrayal. I cried with a kind of grief that tasted like iron and ash. The kind of pain that doesn't whisper, it roars. Because he won. Lucian won. He sat on the throne, not hiding, not lurking, open, crowned, smiling. And Celeste sat beside him, not a prisoner, not a victim, his queen. They declared Matthias dead. They erased his name like it never mattered. They called Caspian illegitimate, a lie given a crown. And then the hunt began. Not quiet, not secret, a kingdom-wide manhunt. My face on wanted posters. My child named a threat. Matthias marked as a ghost to be buried. The ones who once bowed turned cruel. The hands that once fed us turned into fists. The smiles became knives. We ran through betrayal like it was rain. And I remembered where we had to go. The rogue territories. The places that didn't belong to any flag. The land of the forgotten. The broken. The rejected. My people. The ones I survived with for 7 years. Exiled wolves. Cast-off mates. Warriors who had been told they were nothing. They didn't cheer when I returned. They reached for weapons. Because Matthias walked beside me. To them, he was everything they had fled. A crown. A throne. A system that crushed them. I stepped forward. My voice didn't shake. He's learning, I said. Give him a chance. Silence fell like a blade. They didn't trust him. Not his hands. Not his face. Not his blood. And that's when Matthias did something I never thought I would see. He bent. Not in defeat. In humility, he removed his weapons. Lowered his head. I don't deserve your protection, he said. But my son does. That was the first crack in their fury. Because they saw it. A king who no longer sounded like a king. A man trying to become a father. Then came the days of fire. Training. Caspian trained with my people. No thrones. No titles. Only control. Balance. Breath. I watched him grow. Not taller, stronger. Inside. Power stopped being a storm. It became a current. And Matthias trained beside him. Not ordering. Sweating. Bleeding. Falling. Standing back up. Side by side. Not ruler and heir. Teacher and student. Man and boy. One night, the air was quiet. Too quiet. Caspian sat beside the fire. Eyes too sharp for his age. And he asked it. The question that splits souls. Why didn't you want me? The world stopped. Even the fire went still. Matthias didn't lie. He didn't soften it. He didn't wrap it in excuses. I was afraid, he said. Silence. Afraid of what you represented. Afraid of being weak. My chest hurt hearing it. Caspian tilted his head. Simple. Deadly. Am I your weakness? Matthias didn't hesitate. No, he said. You're my strength. I just didn't know it yet. Something shifted that night. Something unbreakable. Then the plan was born. We didn't want chaos. We wanted truth. Not war. Exposure. Lucian couldn't be defeated with swords alone. He needed to be seen. Unmasked. Dragged into light. We would gather evidence. Proof of the payments. Proof of the murders. Proof of Celeste's betrayal. And then, ritual combat. Old law. Unbreakable law. He couldn't run from it. He couldn't hide. But we were missing the final piece. A living piece. The doctor who lied. The one who falsified bloodlines. The one who signed Caspian into shadow. And where was he? Lucian's dungeon. On his knees. In chains. Waiting for dawn. Scheduled for execution. Public. Final. We looked at the stars. Then, at each other. 8 hours. That's all we had. 8 hours to break into a palace ruled by a monster. 8 hours to steal a man from death. 8 hours to survive. And if we failed, the kingdom would remain a lie forever. And my son would be hunted until the world ended. So we didn't sleep. We sharpened. We breathed. We prepared. Because the night wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Pain. Blistering. Savage pain swallowed my lungs as I cried with violent, body-ripping sobs that felt like my organs were being torn apart with bare hands. My throat burned. My hands trembled. My heart felt like it was being beaten with iron. I didn't cry quietly. I didn't cry weakly. I cried like something wounded, hunted, furious, because that night wasn't just dangerous. It was suicide, wrapped in hope. We moved like ghosts through the palace. My palace. His palace, our old graveyard of marble and gold. I walked halls I once slept in, now filled with enemy breath. The walls felt colder. The torches felt wrong. Everything smelled like betrayal. Matthias moved beside me, silent, lethal. Not a king, not a ruler. A man breaking into his own home. We brought only a small team. The best, the quietest, the ones who knew how to die without screaming. And we made the hardest choice. We left Caspian behind. We didn't tell him until the last moment. I can still see his eyes. Furious. Hurt. Wild. He looked at me like I had cut him open. "I'm not weak," he said. And I had to walk away anyway. Because I was more afraid of losing him than losing my soul. The palace tried to kill us. Every corridor had teeth, hidden blades, tripwires, pressure plates, traps Matthias designed, turned against us. We slid under swinging steel, clung to shadows, held our breath while guards passed inches away. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. I tasted copper. Then we found the dungeon. Stones sweating with rot. Chains screaming when touched. And there he was. The doctor. Not a man anymore. Just bones covered in regret. Eyes hollow. Hands shaking. Voice cracked. He dropped to his knees when he saw us. He didn't beg. He broke. "I lied," he said. And everything poured out. The forged blood tests. The altered scrolls. The fake declarations. I held the magical recorder in my shaking hands, a small, glowing relic that traps truth in light. His confession burned into it. Every word, every crime, every name. And then I felt it. That itch, that warning, that shift in the air. She knew. Celeste was already there. Slow claps, soft footsteps, guards pouring in from every archway like blood. She looked beautiful. She always did. That's what made her terrifying. "You're predictable," she said, her voice like honey over broken glass. She knew everything. About the army, about the plan, about us. We weren't sneaking through shadows. We were walking into her spiderweb. "You have a spy in your camp," she said, smiling. My stomach dropped. Then she offered it. "The deal. Leave," she said. "Disappear. Run. And I let you live." Not mercy. Contempt. Matthias stepped forward. And for the first time, he didn't sound like a king. He sounded like a man who had lost everything. No. One word. Heavy. Final. That's when screams hit the air. Not ours. Theirs. Flames exploded through the upper levels. Stone cracked. The palace shook. And I felt it before I saw it. Him. Caspian. He disobeyed. Of course he did. He didn't come alone. He came with the rogues. With the outcasts, with the broken ones who had nothing left to lose, a 6-year-old alpha leading an army through the front gates. It shouldn't have been possible. It shouldn't have been real. It was terrifying. It was magnificent. The air bent around him. The ground seemed to listen. Guards froze. Not because they were ordered, because their bodies knew who stood before them. We didn't fight forward. We fought out. Smoke, steel, fire, shouting. We pulled the doctor from chains, dragged truth through blood, ran through corridors that collapsed behind us. I looked back just once, at the throne room, at the place that tried to bury my child, and I promised it wouldn't stand when we came back. We escaped. Barely. The night swallowed us whole and spat us out alive. We had the proof. The recording burned warm in my palm. We had the army. We had the truth. But Lucien saw the smoke. He felt the shift. He knows. Now, he knows we're coming. The board is gone. This isn't shadows anymore. This is law. This is blood. This is old, ancient, brutal truth. Trial by combat. Lucien versus Matthias. Brother versus brother. Winner takes the throne. Loser dies. And the cruelest truth of all? Matthias hasn't beaten him in a fair fight. In 20 years, pain. Brutal. Choking pain shattered through me as I sobbed like a storm breaking open my ribs. Violent cries ripping from deep inside my chest as if my heart was being torn in half by bare hands. My legs felt weak, my fingers shook, every breath hurt. I cried with terror. I cried with rage. I cried because this was the moment where everything could be taken from us in one swing of a blade. He challenged him. Matthias stood in the center of the arena and didn't look like a king. He looked like a man standing on the edge of a grave. His voice was loud, clear, public. I invoke the trial by combat. The words hit the air like lightning. Ancient law. Unbreakable. Bloody. Lucian smiled. He didn't hesitate. He accepted like he'd been waiting years for this moment. The kingdom came. Every street overflowed. Balconies bent under the weight of bodies. They wanted blood. They wanted spectacle. They wanted an ending. And I only saw my son, Caspian. Small hands clenched into fists. His shoulders shaking. His eyes too big, too afraid, terrified of losing a father. On the same day he found him. Before the blades touched, we showed them the truth. The magical recording lit up the square. The doctor's broken voice spilled into the crowd. Confession, forgery, murder, children killed in the dark. Celeste screamed. People gasped. The world shifted. Faces changed. But the law was older than shock, older than betrayal. We couldn't stop the fight. Not now, not ever, Steele sang. And it was ugly. Lucian fought like a man who enjoyed killing. Fast, precise, cruel. Every move was aimed to end a life. Matthias fought like a man who had lost too much. Blocking, falling, bleeding. Lucian was younger, sharper, built like violence. Steel bit into Matthias's side. Blood spilled across the sand. His knee cracked against stone. The crowd roared. They tasted death before it happened. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. Then I heard it. Small, breaking, terrified. Get up, Dad. Please get up. Dad. The word didn't hit Matthias. It detonated inside him. I saw it in his eyes. That shift. That fire. Not pride. Not crown. Not ego. Love. He rose. Not like a king. Like a father. His blade moved differently. Not wild. Not desperate. Purposeful. Every step remembered. Every wound ignored. He wasn't fighting for power. He was fighting for a boy who called him Dad. For a woman who refused to break. For a life he almost destroyed. Lucian faltered. Just once. And once was enough. Steel flashed. A final strike. A scream that wasn't Matthias's. Lucian fell. Silence swallowed the kingdom. Matthias stood over him. Blade ready. One breath from ending it. The bloodline. The problem. The betrayal. All it would take was one move. Caspian watched. I watched. The world waited. And Matthias lowered the blade. I won't be the king who kills family, he said. His voice didn't shake. Exile. Forever. The crowd exploded. Not with anger. With something new. Respect. Not for power. For restraint. For change. For the kind of strength that doesn't need blood. The throne was his again. The lies were dead. The conspiracy exposed. He had won back his son. Now came the hardest part. Me. Because reclaiming a kingdom is easy compared to facing the woman you destroyed. He turned toward me. Not as a king. Not as a ruler. Just a man, standing in front of the mate he rejected. The question hung between us like a storm waiting to break. Not spoken. Not answered. What happens to us now? Pain. Splintering pain shattered out of my chest as I cried with violent, gasping sobs that ripped through my throat like broken glass. My hands shook. My knees buckled. My heart felt flayed open. I wasn't crying for the kingdom. I wasn't crying for the crown. I was crying because winning a war is easy, but choosing to stay hurts more than leaving. He was crowned. Gold, light, noise, applause. Matthias stood before the kingdom, restored, lifted, powerful. And my son stood beside him, crown prince, legitimate, seen, celebrated, loved, and while the kingdom screamed with joy, I packed my bags, quietly, carefully, silently. I didn't belong in the cheers. I didn't belong in the songs. I had done my job. I had brought my son back to safety. That was enough. Or so I told myself. I didn't hear him. I felt him. You're leaving? His voice wasn't sharp. It was thin. I turned slowly. My job was to protect him, I said. He's safe now. I can go. The air between us tightened. What about us? He asked. I laughed, not kindly. There is no us, Matthias, I said. You rejected me. The bond is broken. He stepped closer. Is it? He said quietly. Because I still feel it. Damaged, yes, but not dead. That hurt more than anger. That cut deeper than any blade. I looked away. I don't know if I can forgive you, I whispered. He didn't argue. He didn't defend. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I'm asking for a chance, not to fix what I broke, to build something new. My fingers tightened around the bag. Why? I asked. For the bond? For appearances? For Caspian, he said. He needs his mother, and maybe I need you too. Need. The word sat heavy. Need isn't love, I said. No, he replied. But it's a start. Then a small voice cracked the air. Mom? Caspian stood in the doorway. He hadn't been spying. He had been listening. And he had heard enough. He walked to me first. Not him. Not the crown. Me? I want you to stay, he said. But only if you want to. Then he turned to Matthias. And his voice hardened. You, he said. You have to promise. Silence. Promise you'll never throw us away again. Matthias didn't hesitate. Not for a breath. I promise. On my crown. On my life. On everything I am. Caspian turned back to me. His eyes were softer now. I think he means it. I swallowed. I think so too, I said. But meaning it and doing it are different things. That's when I made my choice. Not for love. Not for bond. For truth. I'll stay, I said. Both of them froze. As Caspian's mother, I continued. As your ally, but not your mate. Not yet. His voice was barely a whisper. Not yet? Earn it, I said. Show me the man you're becoming is worth the boy I loved. How long? He asked. As long as it takes. He nodded. Not as a king, as a man willing to wait, then I'll spend every day earning it. 5 years passed. Like thunder, like healing, like growth carved slowly into stone. My son grew, stronger, wiser, kinder. He trained not just with blades, but with balance. Not to rule with fear, but with understanding. Matthias changed. Not in speeches. In actions. He listened. He apologized. He built instead of destroyed. The kingdom loved him not because he was feared, but because he was fair. And me? I became what I was always meant to be. Head of royal security. Protector of outcasts. Shield of the unwanted. We weren't a perfect family. We were a real one. No lies. No forced bonds. One evening, under a quiet sky, he came to me. Not in gold. Not in ceremony. Just him. And a small, simple ring. Not a mate bond, he said. Not a crown. Just a promise. His hand trembled. Will you choose me? Again. Newly. Freely. I looked at Caspian. 11 now. Strong. Kind. A leader in the making. I looked at Matthias. No longer the man who broke me. Now the man who tried. Every single day. I looked at the life we had built out of ashes. And I said it. Yes. A breath. A truth. A future. I choose you. He didn't kiss me like destiny. He kissed me like a choice. And from behind us, my son's voice cut through the air. About time. And if you're reading this, if you felt this, let me ask you, would you have forgiven him? Could you have? Tell me. Because some kings need crowns, and some need redemption, and some only learn love after they lose everything.